everyone. Welcome to Chicago Reacts. My name is Lauren, and today I'm going to look at a Ted Nivison video. This one is the accidental 400 milligram edible. That's so much. That's a lot. So I don't know how you do this by accident, and I don't know what it would do to you, but hopefully Ted is going to inform us. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. Grab a drink, grab your own edible. Not a 400 milligram one though, and let's see what he has in store for us today.
Is it just pure pain now? Oh, that's what you hate to hear.
Oh no! The most I've ever taken, I think it was like 50 or something, and it was an accident. I got mad at the guy too, because like he would just offered an edible, and I was like, yeah, sure. And then I'd already like, and he was like, it's 50, and I was like, excuse you what? Excuse you what? Because I was like a 45-minute walk from my house at the time. I was like, I hadn't eaten dinner or anything, so I was like, I hung out for a little bit longer. Then I went home. I managed to get home, cook, eat, clean up, and then I just completely passed out. Just done. I just played a softball game, and like I was like the next day I was like, sheets need to get washed. There is dirt in the bed because of like, oh, it was bad. I was like just done. And that was with 50. So
goodness gravy, I've got a story for you guys today. Listen, in the pursuit of life, sometimes we run into bumps along the road. The bumps vary in size and severity. Sometimes it's a little tiny pebble in the road, and sometimes it's a giant fucking boulder, like, for instance, if you were hiking and you got hit by a giant fucking boulder. We're doing our best, alright? And sometimes things don't work out the way we would prefer. Today's one of those little interesting conundrums that we run into every now and then in our lives, and it happened to me. I ran into a bit of an issue. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about how I once accidentally drugged myself with the largest edible I've ever eaten. Last February, before all the coronavirus garbage happened, I traveled to Los Angeles for spring break. And one of the things that I had to do was I had to sign a shit ton of posters for U2s. There was probably more than 3,000 posters that I had to sign, and the posters were being kept at the house that the Misfits YouTube group were staying at in LA. Carson was there, Schlatt was there, Cooper was there. We were all just trying to like sign all of these posters as fast as we could because there's so many of them, and it was taking us literally hours to do. At this point, there was maybe about 5 or 6 people in the house at this time. And that's because at that point, the whole main Misfits crew had gone out to dinner somewhere. I don't know if you know this about the Misfits in general.
no, I don't.
But they smoke a lot of weed. Every trip they do, they probably spend a couple $1,000s on weed, okay?
Wow.
They smoke the Mary Jane. They do the weed. In order to make the process of signing these posters go a little bit smoother, I had smoked like half a joint of weed. So I was already decently high because I hadn't smoked in a while either. Signing away, crossing my I's, dotting my T's. However, my personal reaction to weed is that I get the munchies. I get the munchies pretty hard. I smoke a little bit of the marijuana, and then
oh no.
entire sleeve of club crackers with no cheese because gluttony. I had originally
See, I don't really get that affected most of the time. Like I have to, if I'm gonna have any kind of weed, it's gotta be so much. I have to have so much for it to do anything. So I almost never partake because like, why?
originally planned to go to dinner with my girlfriend and her father, so I was trying to wean off of the high and just kind of sign the posters and wait until it kind of wore off, and then I would go and do that. One of the things that they had at this house was they had a giant counter in which a bunch of snacks were all laid out. There was chips, there was more chips.
I can see how this is going to go badly. I know how it's going to go badly because this has happened to somebody in my family when we were children. My uncle had this giant birthday party, like for his 40th birthday party, and he had a Rolling Stones cover band there, and there was a snack table full of stuff. I mean, I remember I put down my cup, went to go grab a snack, and I went to go pick my cup up, and when I took a drink, it had magically muted from Sprite to white wine, and I'm terrible. I like spat the wine back into the cup and set it down on the table again. And then I saw the Jello squares. So I was like, great, Jello squares. I picked up the Jello square, tried to take a bite, was like, oh, that tastes wrong. I like flipped it over like to those. There was 3, I think, in each cup. I licked the bottom one. I was like, this is nasty. Put it down on the back steps. There was a certain member of my family that shall remain anonymous. Did not realize the flavor was off. 6-year-old child ate like several of these Jello squares that were on the snack table next to the M&Ms, but they were in fact full of alcohol.
There was, I think, pizza. I don't fucking remember. As I look across this horizon of bountiful snacks, I see a Nerds Rope, and my munchy brain is like,
Nerds Rope.
ooh. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I remember Nerds Rope. I haven't had
They were
Nerds
great.
Rope in fucking forever, dude.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to my childhood where we would go to a campground in Maine, and I would waddle on down to the snack shack and grab myself a Nerds Rope.
I
before
loved a
eating
Nerds
it,
Rope.
considering its potential applications as nunchucks or trying to tie a knot with it. But then realizing, I'm a kid. I don't know how to tie knots, and my prefrontal lobe won't even be done cooking for another 20 years, so what's even the point? Give me a slush puppy, give me a Game Boy SP, let's fuck it up.
But Lord have mercy. Did I learn in this moment I no longer was a child, but a man?
A man who experiences consequence in the worst way possible. So I'm signing more posters, I'm cruising, I'm having a great time, alright? Nerds Rope tastes a bit strange, but that could also be my perception that I have of being already high, and it kind of, if you've ever been high before, it kind of messes with your perception of taste.
And I don't know if you've had like a snack after many years of not having eaten that snack. You kind of sometimes think, this maybe just tastes different than I remember.
A little bit. It was like drinking a Diet Coke versus a normal Coke where there's like, there's something there. There's something there. But I don't fully process why it tastes different. So I finished the Nerds Rope. And then I go to have another Nerds Rope because I'm high and have the munchies. As I'm biting into the next Nerds Rope, one of the Misfits guys says, Ted, don't eat those. Those are edibles. Sorry. I must have heard you wrong. Scusi? Yeah, Ted, that's an edible. So I say, no fucking way. How much was it? And he says, I think it might be like 60 milligrams. What? 60 milligrams? To give you context, the largest edible I'd had up until this point in my life was 20 milligrams. So
that's pretty normal. Like most things are about 20. Oh no. Like at least, I mean, I had a couple of 20 that were supposed to help me fall asleep and they never did because whenever I tried to take any of those sleepy time, like edibles or whatever, and even if I try to do like melatonin, I mean, my body gets very tired, but my brain just like takes off to outer space. Like they do not work. So like I stopped. Like I stopped trying and I've just learned to live with the insomnia of it all. But like 20 milligrams will get most people pretty, like, blitzed from my understanding of how this works.
Of course, I ask, are you sure? One of the guys walks over to the counter and picks up the package of the Nerds Rope, and with the most you are fucked face I've ever seen in a person, he says, it's actually 400 milligrams. Now remember, I've already freaked out when I heard that it was a 50 milligram edible, and I've just been told that it is actually 8 times that amount. So you may be asking yourself, Ted, how the fuck did you not know that that was an edible? And that's a good question. Let's start with the packaging.
It looks like a Nerds Rope.
That's the packaging. It uses the same packaging as the actual branded Nerds Rope. It's got a thing that says tear and share, as if it's just a normal candy. In hindsight, that's very much so implying for a good reason that you really should be sharing it and not eating it entirely on your own. If you're not really paying attention, and it's been like 8 years since you've had a Nerds Rope, this is pretty easy to mistake.
Yeah, no, like I said, I know exactly how he made this mistake. I know exactly how he's done it because I've seen it happen before. Granted, in my experience, it happened to literal children. I don't know if you've ever seen a drunk 6-year-old. But, it's fine. Everybody was okay. And it seems like he was okay too, but 400 That's a lot. Like, even like I said, I had 50, and I still, and like I was fine because like it until like the end. Like I had 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours before I like started to feel anything. Because I just have a stupid tolerance for it for no reason. So I'm just like thinking about like, but I can't even imagine if I'd had like more than that. Like, I can't even imagine.
For a nerd's rope. In addition to that, there was a very specific and deceptive way that everything was laid out as snacks in the Misfits house. And I'll just let Swagger Souls explain that for me.
There was a very reasonable way, like we set it up, because the nerd's rope was an edible. It was a 400 milligram edible, and he didn't read the packaging. But
It's his fault.
we have on that bench, it's a big ass bench. It's snacks and food, chips, Pringles, gummy bears, all that shit.
Munchies.
And then there's weed food, which is edibles in between that and the weed, which makes sense. If,
Like a spectrum.
No, I would have put you have to put the weed between the weed food and the food. Like, you absolutely, especially if gummy bears are involved. Like, holy crap, there's already a gummy thing there. Like, you have to put the weed in between. Like, you have to. And you have to tell people. That's on you guys. That's on them.
Yeah, like a spectrum.
Progressively dangerous as you go
Yes.
along.
That's the thing, is that it would make more sense to kind of put the weed food away so that you don't confuse the
Confuse it
food with the
actual
weed.
food.
Which is
I'm
what
so-
happened
Which
to
is
poor
what
Ted.
happened to Ted. He was tripping
Amazing.
balls.
If you've ever been in a car crash, even if it's
At least
not
they
your fault,
realize.
there's a certain feeling after it immediately happens. It's this mind-racing feeling when you have absolutely no idea what to do, but you also know that something has to be done or you're fucked. AKA panic. So at this point, I begin to freak out for 3 reasons. First of all, I didn't know if I was personally prepared mentally to get as high as I was about to get. Second of all, I had made plans for dinner with my girlfriend and her father that night.
You're
and
sick.
I definitely won't be making it. And
No,
I'm
you're
pretty
sick.
Sure she's gonna be a little bit pissed. And
Yep.
the third reason, I hadn't smoked weed in 2 months, which meant that my tolerance was rock bottom. I like to explain this with what I like to call the skyscraper analogy. Right here we have the tolerance skyscraper, which represents my tolerance to marijuana. Let's just say that whenever I smoke weed, I start at the ground floor in the lobby. If my tolerance were higher, then maybe I'd go a couple stories up to the mid-level apartments. That's where all the stoner kids from high school hang out. And they're all pretty high up there, but it's nothing really to be worried about.
Are you
You're
and
probably
friends?
couch locked, but you'll be fine. With my tolerance at 0, though, I knew in my heart and my soul that I was going all the way up to Cheech and Chong's fucking penthouse as an unwilling and unexpected
Oh,
guest
no.
for an undetermined amount of time. As
The highest I ever saw, and this is just going to be an entire episode of like he's telling stories and I'll tell a story. But highest I ever saw someone was a couple of friends and we went to a beach house, and there'd been, I don't think I wasn't really smoking at the time, so I think that I was just kind of there. Like, they were smoking in the car. I don't think I really smoked in it, honestly. Pretty sure, because I was like, I don't need to, I'm fine. But we were basically, it was dangerous. We shouldn't have done it. This was many years ago. Don't do this, children. Do not hotbox in a car as you drive. But everybody else had been smoking for a while, except the driver, who was not smoking. But everybody else had already been smoking for a little while. And my one friend was so blitzed by the time we got to the beach house. They were completely non-verbal. I remember we got to the beach house. There's already two of the guys were already there. So we went in and they were watching Rick and Morty, and my one friend like sits down at the like on the ottoman, stares at the television for a solid 10 seconds, pointed at it, goes, "Ah!" and just back down. Later we found out that this person thought that they'd said something at that point. They said nothing. I was like super lame. I went to bed. Everybody else went to go get sandwiches. but this friend went with them to go get sandwiches. We still have a photo of them lying on the middle of the floor in the hallway, sandwich half unwrapped in their hand, just completely passed, like gone, dead to the world. Sandwich uneaten, straight up in their hand as they are just passed out on their back on the middle of the floor. You know, be careful with your drugs, children. If you live in a place where marijuana is legal and accessible, just be careful. That is all I'm saying.
Things stand right now, I don't even live in the building. I'm from out of town, and I sometimes commute into the city. Oh, it's a Friday night. Oh, we should go get drinks in the city. That's what I'm operating on. I know that I'm on a timer. Most edibles take about 45 minutes to an hour before they kick in.
Mine like 2 hours for me, almost always.
10 to 15 minutes prior, which means, math, I've got about 45 minutes before this edible hits me and I die. Although, other things can affect this, such as being on an empty stomach, which I was. My first thought was that I need to make myself throw up, because if I can get rid of as much of this edible as possible, I could potentially mitigate the level of inebriation that I was about to experience. So I stumble over to the bathroom and I start to gag, and I'm trying to make myself throw up, but I've never made myself throw up before. I don't know how to do it. So the next step is that I got Carson on his phone looking up how-tos on WikiHow on how to make myself throw up, and then Cooper's in the kitchen and he's making cups of salt water for me to chug, because apparently if you chug salt water, it helps with the throwing up process.
Ugh.
I'm not sure how true that was. It just ended up with me just throwing up a bunch of pinkish salt water. So
Ew.
I can't speak for its effectiveness, but
Ew.
there you go.
And I'm pretty sure since the Nerds Rope was sort of a candy, sugar-based food, it was really easy for my stomach to digest it really fast. So I'm pretty sure if I hadn't thrown it up within maybe 5 minutes, there really wasn't that much that I could do from there. So by the time I was done throwing up, some food that we had ordered earlier arrived, and Cooper basically advised me that the best thing that I could really do for myself would be to just fill my now completely empty stomach. From this point on, all I could really do was buckle up. Strap
Yeah.
in and get
Did he
ready.
call his girlfriend and be like, hey, babe, I'm actually incredibly sick. Cannot do it. Accidentally had this Nerds Rope that was 400 milligrams and I'm gonna die. Like,
For the fucking high of a lifetime. God bless my soul. So I'm going to give you guys a walkthrough of what this high was like. It wasn't fun. I also have some video footage that Cooper took, so link to his channel in the description. Once I kind of came to terms with the fact that I was going to have to ride out
I want to
the
see if I
time
can
no
find
matter
that.
what, I decided to give myself a home base. Just somewhere where I could ground myself and not really need to worry about moving around or anything. I found myself a nice armchair, and I sat myself down there and prepared for the ride of a lifetime. The first thing that happened to me was a classic weed symptom, which is cotton mouth, which is when your mouth gets really, really dry. So I was pretty much just constantly drinking water. I remember starting to get colder. And the Misfits, they had a room where they just had a bunch of extra merch laid out where they could just give that to friends and stuff while they were in LA.
nice.
And I kind of just walked in there and just threw on one of the sweatshirts and then just went back to my home base and sat
Go
down.
chair.
And I was wondering for myself if that cold symptom that I was experiencing was real. I did research on the symptoms that I was experiencing, and this was something that actually happens. Informally, it's referred to as weed chills. The THC literally lowered my internal body temperature, so I actually was getting cold. Another thing that happened, and I
interesting.
think this also might have been a symptom of being cold, but I started getting shaky. And it's really funny the way that I described that when I was high, and I actually have video footage of that right here.
Welcome back to the vlog. It's gotten worse, friends. It's been about 45 minutes since last, and this is fucking bad.
Ted, I think you need another stick of butter.
I feel like my entire body feels like rubber bands.
Pretty much after that point was
Oh,
when
no.
things started to get they started to get bad.
Fuck.
The shaking was also the reason why in the video you can see me clasping my
Yeah,
hands
like,
together.
you could
Because I
see
was
him, like-
literally like shaking so much that I had to hold my hands together really
Ooh,
tightly
rough,
and keep
dude.
my body really tight and close so I could be in like a comfortable state. And then I get into what is called the painful zone, or the first level of weed hell. Pretty much any position that I was sitting in felt painful.
Interesting.
It fucking touching shit and feeling the world around me feels bad.
Damn.
Ooh. That's happened to me before, but not because of any kind of drugs. That's just occasionally happens. Like, I'll just be like, I'm like, ooh, suddenly all of the sensations are everywhere. And it happens to me a lot. Again, this is the insomnia thing coming back up. But like, when I'm trying to like sleep, I will just be so aware of where every part of my body is touching the bed, and it is so uncomfortable, and I'm like, I can feel the air moving past my face, and I'm just like, everything about this is so uncomfortable, and like, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as pain, but like highly uncomfortable. Suddenly the pillows just feel flat, like the mattress is just pressing, and it is very uncomfortable, and that is a huge reason why a lot of the times I do have a problem going to sleep, because I'm like, suddenly I am just so completely aware of everything, and it will not go away, and like there's no way I can turn that makes it more comfortable. Like, it sucks. 0 out of 10, don't recommend. Apparently the pain is, poor Ted. Sorry that you're in pain.
Don't do too much weed.
I hate this.
I was in the pain hotel, and I was its only guest. Any
Aw.
surface that I touched, whether it be the arms of my chair, putting my hands on my knees, anything like that, just felt bad. And what I think I would attribute that to is just being so high. My sense of touch was just so elevated that my brain was just overloaded or something. Most of the time, I was just
that makes
trying
sense.
to like breathe.
Like I said, though, like that happens to me without the effects of freaking mind-altering substances. That just sort of happens sometimes. So I'm really glad it doesn't happen to him like that. Because it sucks.
Breathe deeply and kind of maintain my composure. But whenever Cooper would turn the camera on me and he would start recording, I would sort of like try to elevate my attitude and try to seem as cheery as possible, because I didn't really want to seem like an idiot high stoner on camera, you know? At a certain point, I had to move my home base because it was too disorienting to be sitting straight up. I had to go and get fucking horizontal, baby. And I pretty much had to make a mental agreement with myself just to survive.
Is it just pure pain now? That's what you hate to hear.
It was during this time
Oh, and you can barely talk,
unbearable
too.
dizziness that my good friend Schlatt
Oh,
decided
the
to
spins.
use.
Gotta love the spins. The spins part sucks. That's happened to me once or twice. I'm like, this is why I don't like to... Because again, like in order to feel anything, if I have just a little bit, it will take hours. If it's an edible, it'll take like 2 hours to kick in and feel anything. If it's just a puff puff pass kind of situation, nothing. I get nothing off of a joint. So like it just takes so long, and so I have to do a lot to feel anything at all, because otherwise what's the point? And then I get the spins and like nothing else, and I'm just like, well, why? Like, there's no point. So that's the story of why I like almost never touch marijuana, because it doesn't do anything, and I have to do so much to feel anything, and then usually what I feel is spins.
A fucking handheld massager on me.
You are a criminal.
Schlatt.
That shit to me right now. Schlatt. That is, you
I'm just
understand-
getting the lactic
you really
acid
under-
flowing.
not- You can't do
I
this
just want to get the
automated
juices
shit
flowing.
Oh, that's so
I
mean.
just want to get
You
the juices
stupid.
flowing.
That's gonna turn me into like
Ted,
another
Ted, if you please.
organism.
If you please.
I will fucking jujitsu you, bitch.
Oh, it was weird to see him without the mutton chops.
Ted, what's the update? What's the status?
DEFCON 1.
Oh no.
Do you see my attitude there? I wonder why I wouldn't like that. A rapidly moving massager. If you want a lesson on what not to do to someone when they're high, that really takes the cake. Eventually, the fateful moment happens. I had a weed barf. I honestly think it was really just because of how dizzy I was getting from being high. And luckily
makes
for
sense.
me, I ate a whole sandwich about an hour ago. I literally had to run across the entire room and just run into the bathroom and throw up. After I threw up, though, that's pretty much where the high took the downturn, though. It was cleansing. It was a cleansing barf. Yeah, it was detoxifying. I went to go eat some Skittles, but without even knowing I was on camera, I went around to people and not trusting my own ability to determine this, I asked them if the Skittles were edibles or not.
Jack, listen, what he knows, these are normal Skittles, right? Normal Skittles?
You don't get edibles in that big of a quantity, bro.
I ate the edible at about 6:30 p.m. that day, and I stayed awake all the way until about 4 a.m. that night. I woke up at about 9 a.m. and I was still very high. But
Yeah,
I was
that'll
probably
happen.
A manageable amount of high. What
Okay.
struck me though was I was high for the entire next day. I went to bed that night high. So in total, after eating a 400 milligram edible, I was high for about 26 hours. If there's one thing you can take away from this is like any anti-weed sentiment from this video. I think weed is a perfectly healthy drug to use recreationally. But weed, like everything else, follows the rule that too much of anything is definitely a bad thing.
Yikes.
Honestly, only consume weed in a state in which it's legal and if you're
Yes.
of age. Hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Agreed.
Let me know if you want more stories from my life. I don't really know how many stories I have to tell. This is like the second one I've ever told on this channel. But I hope you learned a thing or two. And if there's one thing you should take away from this, it's this. Weed is for sinners, and I'm going to hell.
It's okay. All right, well, oh, poor Ted. I was not expecting what to expect there. I had no idea what to expect. I wasn't expecting what to expect. There is not words. I had no idea what to expect with this particular story. I wasn't expecting just a personal anecdote, but I kind of liked that. I thought it was kind of fun, and it did spark some reminiscence in me. So it's like, hey, if you want me to do it, I'll do a personal anecdote. I've got some weird things. But hey, I enjoyed that story. I hope you enjoyed that story. Let me know about your stories in the comments below. I would be fascinated to hear about your mishaps, so long as it all ended up okay. That's the main thing. We all ended up safe. Enjoy the rest of your day, and like Ted said, be sure to, be responsible with your use of mind-altering substances. Safe amounts in places where it's legal to do it. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.